Hello, in this video we are going to continue on examining how to build some sketches for logic games. And for this video I'm going to be sticking with, strict, strict sequencing, though in subsequent videos I'm going to move on to do matching, distribution, loose sequencing, all that kind of stuff. Okay, but in this one I kind of wanted to get into um, a couple of different types of strict sequencing games, and you could really think of them sort of in a way as three different basic categories. Number one would just be the standard, straight up, strict sequencing where you just have stuff in an order and we have to place them. It's just kind of, that's that. Very descriptive there. And then the other part, and we've done a few of those already, and I've posted some of those up on the YouTubes, so you can check those out as well. But the other kinds that I want to get at a little bit today is something that involves more of the formal logic, and then something that involves what's called a hybrid. And a hybrid would be kind of a combination of rules that we would use for strict sequencing along with some of the other game types. Okay? So it's basically strict sequencing with just a little extra twist added into it. Makes it a little, maybe slightly bit more complicated, but nevertheless manageable. All right. So now the strategy is going to be, I'm going to make the sketch, and then I'm going to scroll down and show you the questions that are associated with each of these sketches, but I'm not going to handle the questions. I would just encourage you to pause the video, take a screenshot, and then try them on your own. Of course, you're always welcome to hit me with comments or email or whatever if you're confused over how to handle some of those the questions. Okay, but let's just get started with this one. So now this one is going to be category number 2. And the way that we know that is, notice we got some of these, we have these if-thens, right? If this, then Nancy is that. If Nancy is this, then Iris is that. So we have something like this here. I want to show you how you can incorporate that into your actual sketch. But first things first, let's just make sure that we are in fact dealing with sequencing. Let's look at this. We have 5 people, H through V, okay, scheduled for 5 consecutive days from Monday through Friday. So that indicates order is going to matter. And then we also have something where it's 1 contestant per day, so there's no repeats. Remember, that's how we know that we're dealing with sequencing. Order matters, consecutive days, Monday through Friday, no repeats. So it looks like this is what we have. So let's make our preliminary sketch here. If we have 5 days, I'll put down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, and then we have our players, which is going to be, oh gosh, my gosh, H, I, K, N, and V. I updated the driver on my tablet, and everything's just gone to hell. Should have known better by now. You need to update. No, I do not. Okay, but anyway, let's make this happen. All right, let's look at the rules. So those are our players, and we need to place them into these 5 slots here. And what do we have? What rules do we have here? We have number 1. We say Nancy is not on Monday or day 1. So I'm going to put Nancy is not day 1. So I can kind of build that directly into my sketch right off the bat. I know I can't put Nancy here, right? All right, what else do we know? Number 2, if Harry, H is on Monday or day 1, N is on day Friday or 5. So that would be something like this. I could say H on, if H is on day 1, so put H1, that must mean N is on day 5. Now, very importantly, we can sketch the contrapositive for this. Remember what the contrapositive is that we can create an alternative for another sort of a logical representation of this by switching these terms and then switching their signs. So that's equivalent to me saying that if N is not on day 5, that means that H is not on day 1. Okay? Pause the video if you've forgotten how to do a contrapositive. I would highly encourage you to just Google it real quickly, but it's essentially those 2 steps. Switch your terms, switch your signs. Both of these were positive, so made them negative, and that's that. Okay, rule 3. What do we have here? If N is on day 2, I is on day 1. So, put that down as N is on 2, leads us to I is on day 1. And again, the contrapositive. If I is not on day 1, we could conclude that N is not on day 2. Okay? And then what's the last one we got? Kate is scheduled for the K is the next day after the day for which Victor is scheduled. A little bit confusingly worded, but basically if you think about it, whatever day that Victor is supposed to be on, K is the next day. So I've got something like this. I've got V and K. right next to each other. Okay? I don't know exactly where V is supposed to go, but I do know that K has to come right after it. All right, so those are our rules here. And let's just think about what can we do? What could we fill in with our sketch? And the short answer is actually not a whole lot. Okay, and let's just think about why that would be for a moment. I can't really combine. Notice we've got rules that involve n. Appears in both rules 2 and 3, right? But it's not really, we're not just dealing with n. We're dealing with n on a specific day, right? Rule 2 kicks in when n is on day 5. That happens when h is on day 1. And rule 3 says, well, n2, what occurs from that? But those two, even though n appears in both of them, these two terms are different, right? That's n5, that's n2. So I really can't combine these, right? And then the same kind of thing goes with, well, h appears here, but we can't, there's only I on this one. So there's not really a whole lot that I can put into my sketch. However, I do have from rule 4, we have to put V right to the left of K. So that would indicate that I could not put K here, and I could not put V here, right? And just think about that for a moment. But that's about the max that I can do. I really can't put any of this stuff in my sketch. So this would be a game where, in case of with if-then statements, I would want to be very clear about what my statements were and what I'm able to deduce. And remember, very importantly, you are only able to make any kind of deduction when the situation to the left of the arrow occurs. In other words, we have 4 basic things that allow us to make 4 conditions that allow us to make some sort of deduction. We can deduce, we can state something when either h is on day 1, or n is not on day 5, or if n is on day 2, or if I is not on day 1. Those are the only 4 conditions that we have that would allow us to make some kind of logical deduction. If none of those conditions apply, like if it talked about, oh, V is on day 3, that's not going to have anything here. Or like vice versa. If I know that, for example, in one of my situations, I say n can't be on day 4, well, I can't make any direct deduction from that based on this right here, because n on day 4 does not exist in my sketch. Okay, so this is as much as I would be able to do filling in for my sketch, but then I would be paying close attention with the questions with my if-then statements. Okay, so now before I wrap up this video, let me just scroll down and show you, given that sketch, here are the questions related to that sketch. So I would encourage you, pause the video, take a screenshot, and go ahead and try them.